morning everyone, and thank you very much Sandra for that welcome to country, and thank you Shelley. Also thank the Hydropolis team for the invitation to be here today, but firstly I wish to also acknowledge the Adjunct people of the Noongar Nation and pay my respects to their elders past and present. The past few decades have seen a lot of significant work across Perth and Peel to implement strategies and solutions for a healthier green-blue future. And that's not quite working, that's better. I acknowledge the bulk of that effort has been carried out by many of you in this room in various capacities, alongside local government and on-the-ground contributors. My invitation here today reflects the WA Government's commitment to share in the responsibility of a collective goal to transform our urban spaces into varying shades of green. Our vision to balance the retention and integration of important natural elements into our urban spaces aims to strengthen their sense of place, ensure a sustainable built future, and boost the countless wellness benefits for those who live, work and play in the Perth and Peel regions. This vision is embodied in the scope of the urban greening strategy currently being developed by the Commission on behalf of the State Government as part of its wider response to climate change. And I'm very pleased to say most of that team putting together that strategy is with us today. The strategy is intended to complement the West Australian climate policy and climate adaptation strategy, seeking to improve the resilience of our cities and regions. The focus of this strategy is on collaboration, working with a host of stakeholders, including yourselves, to not just plan for greener neighbourhoods across Perth and Peel, but also to work together to implement the initiatives that will arise out of the strategy. We know that enhancing tree canopy and green spaces is a proven way to offset the consequences of urban development, such as the urban heat island effect, which is projected to intensify over time. The urban greening strategy builds on the work already completed or underway, taking a whole-of-government approach to coordinate the growing number of public greening initiatives and complement existing programs, including Waterwise Perth and urban greening grants. Between supporting these programs and providing access to consistent urban forest and tree canopy measurement data, I'm pleased to report that we are taking serious, practical steps towards a viable vision for a green-blue Perth and Peel. But why do we need to do this? Climate change is the key driver for the State Government to lead a response in the form of the urban greening strategy for the Perth and Peel regions. Its growing presence has elevated the perception of the long-term greening work that continues to advocate for and build green neighbourhoods and enhance tree canopy and green spaces in our communities. This year alone, we've had the driest summer on record, and we're currently experiencing an extended warm weather pattern. We hope it's going to rain by the weekend. A report by WA Health has indicated recent modelling assumes temperatures will rise an average of 1.64 degrees Celsius from 2005 to 2050, which will impact mental health and potentially increase heat-related deaths more than 60% in that time. Although it's a few years old, this heat map that you can see on the screen is a visual representation of the urban heat island effect in Perth and Peel. It underscores the urgency of our purpose to establish these two regions into greener, cooler and more livable urban spaces. One of the significant concerns we're already addressing through the WAPC master plan, being Perth and Peel at 3.5 million, is Perth's urban sprawl. The city's rapid elongated expansion and legacy preference for low-density housing are simply not sustainable over the longer term. With Perth and Peel expected to grow to 3.5 million population by 2050, some 800,000 more homes will be required to accommodate that growth. This is requiring more compact construction over established areas, which might seem to limit the capacity for larger native trees and flora to flourish. In some newer outer areas in particular, more compact forms of development can exacerbate the heat island effect unless trees are retained and there is capacity for further planting to be undertaken. The urban greening strategy is exploring ways to encourage tree canopy and more green spaces across Perth and Peel. such as consistent canopy measurement and reporting, education and awareness, urban heat identification and mitigation, green linkages, looking at underutilised state government land, for example, for greening opportunities, and the Urban Greening Grant Program. But the strategy is not just about environmental comfort and sustainability, it's also about public health, safety and well-being. Trees and vegetation are not just nice to have components of our urban landscape, they're fundamental to the way a place functions. Together, they offer social, economic and environmental benefits and have a pivotal role in not only mitigating the urban heat island effect, but improving air quality, reducing stormwater runoff and enhancing biodiversity. As well, urban greening initiatives, including the extensive planting of trees and vegetation, yield numerous social benefits. Trees help reduce stress and anxiety, improve cognitive functioning, and enhance overall mental and physical well-being. Moreover, community gardening initiatives create social cohesion and strengthen bonds amongst participants and the wider community. These initiatives also have economic benefits contributing to increased property values and tourism. Furthermore, energy-efficient buildings and sustainable infrastructure lead to lower utility costs. Therefore, the urban greening movement is a pathway to an urban environment that is both environmentally sustainable and economically prosperous. Green spaces in urban environments contribute to keeping our cities cool and limiting the effects of climate change. In the urban greening strategy, trees and vegetation have a crucial role, providing shade, reducing temperatures in urban areas, and enhancing biodiversity. The strategy is set to be a helpful tool to unite the greening charge across Perth and Peel. Its addition to the state's stable of planning policies and tools, it will call on a collective approach from all levels of government, industry and the community to make sure it can respond as needs change and continue to achieve its purpose long into the future. The urban greening strategy is seeking to establish a comprehensive approach that incorporates critical elements such as tree canopy measurement, urban heat mitigation, and the Urban Greening Grant Program. Right now, in stage 1 of its development, our focus is on scoping, research, and stakeholder engagement. To help target the strategy more effectively, we're working closely with key stakeholders, including many of you in this room, to better understand just who is engaged with urban greening across Perth and Peel and how they are contributing to it. Stage 2 will involve further collaboration with stakeholders to develop the strategic details, identify areas of need across Perth and Peel, and how the strategy can support or complement existing urban greening actions. And all of this has to be completed by the end of 2024. By design, the strategy is about engaging community and stakeholders at every level. This inclusive approach ensures that it can be well-informed, effective and viable. Urban greening intends for as many Western Australians as possible to participate in its prescribed efforts. But the strategy itself goes beyond planting trees. It's also about greening more broadly, with ground covers, shrubs, wetlands, green walls, green roofs, and so on. At a grassroots level, and that's not a pun, it fosters a sense of community and shared responsibility for our environments. When finalised, the urban greening strategy will strongly encourage local communities to contribute to the enhancement of their local streets and neighbourhoods, quite literally in their own backyards. An extensive engagement program is in place to gather feedback from stakeholders to guide the development of the strategy, including a hefty schedule of workshops and meetings. We value all feedback, and I urge you to complete the public survey, which is currently open, if you haven't already done so, and the survey will be online and open until the 7th of June this year. It's heartening to note that already more than 1,700 surveys have been completed. Your own outputs from this conference will also be valuable contributions to the existing feedback. The survey responses will be analysed to inform the final strategy, which is expected to be drafted, as I said earlier, later this year. With the issue of access to housing unfolding as a significant social and economic disruptor, the state government is continuing to balance the important priorities of the state's greening work without compromising the equally critical delivery of new housing supply. My minister, of course, is the Minister for Planning and Housing, and he's made it quite clear that everything we do in the planning sphere must have a housing lens over it. So it's important that our housing response ties into the range of policies that will complement urban greening and water management strategies already in place, which create blue-green infrastructure. Importantly, the urban greening strategy is aligning with the Design WA series of policies, which aims to create built environments that reflect the distinctive characteristics of local areas and promote developments that contribute to creating vibrant and livable communities. The strategy will enhance these policies by focusing on tree canopy and vegetation augmentation and the creation of additional green spaces across Perth and Peel. It will also align with the State Planning Policy 7.3, the Residential Design Codes, that sets out planning and design provisions for residential development across Western Australia. These codes, and I'm sure you're all familiar with the codes, facilitate an appropriate standard of housing, encourage a diverse range of housing types, promote sustainability and outline assessment pathways to facilitate better residential outcomes for occupants. The State Government will work closely with the Commission, with the West Australian Local Government Association and other stakeholders to build on the many successful urban greening projects already underway and to explore further planning incentives regarding tree retention. The Government's $3.75 million Urban Greening Grant Program, which is administered through the Department of Water and Environmental Regulation, provides practical support and resources to local governments to plant trees and understory vegetation to foster canopy growth across urban areas. Last Friday, the West Australian Government announced that local governments throughout Perth and Peel can now apply for $2.8 million worth of grants as part of the program's second round to support the planting of trees and understory species in their local government areas. The grant program is an example of how the greening strategy is not just about planning, but also about taking concrete steps to combat climate change. So what of the future? The urban greening strategy is establishing a vision to transform Perth and Peel to set the priorities we need to have in place to achieve viable and sustainable urban greening for the future. Engaging with stakeholders and community is a critical part of the journey to inform the development of the strategy. To all of you here today, and to all of the presenters following me, many of whom have a personal investment in ensuring our green future, I congratulate you in what you've brought to the table to date. Through the urban greening strategy, we can all work towards a greener, healthier and more sustainable future for our urban areas, based on a collaborative effort. A future greener Perth and Peel will require a long-term pipeline of actions ranging from the very simple, such as adding plants to a garden, to more significant projects such as planting trees along road reserves and on building greening such as rooftop gardens. The future is not just in our own hands, but of course it's also in our own backyards. Every tree planted, every garden nurtured will contribute to making our neighbourhoods greener together. It's never too late to start taking action, even if we think the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time, of course, is today. And with that in mind, I'd like to just remind you all that the Commission and DPLH has a booth out the front there. And what we're asking you to do is write down a great idea, and you have the opportunity of winning a seedling, which of course then starts the journey again today for that particular tree. So once again, thank you all very much for the invitation to be here this morning. And thank you, Shelley. Shelley asked me probably sometime in February to come and speak to you, and it was going to be the shift just before lunch. So I agreed, of course, went straight back to the office, looked at my diary and thought, I've got to be in Melbourne today. So that's why I've been slotted in first as a keynote. I don't think at a conference I've ever been a keynote before, but there's always the first time for everything. So thank you very much.